Shalom, all praise to Yahweh Shemel Shah, double line to Apostles GMS. This is Anwar Allah coming at you another video. And in this video, I want to focus on the book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse 3. And I want to talk about the topic of, believing you something when you nothing, you deceiving your own self. Normally in the past I did a lot of shows on a lot of deep breakdowns and going into Roman history, Greek history, so on and so forth. But I'm going to get back into that soon through the spirit of Yahweh Shemel Shah. But, videos like this also got to come out too. You can know all of them deep breakdowns, but when it comes to something like this, you should understand. You don't want to be sitting there looking confused. These things are all important for us to know. So I'm gonna start from verse 1. This is book of Galatians chapter 6, verse 1. Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual. Let's stop right there. If a man be overtaken in a fault, meaning what? If a brother sins, if a brother goes off, ye which are spiritual. What does that mean, ye which are spiritual? Somebody that's spiritual is taking into account what's written in the scriptures. Because the scriptures tell you what the words that are speaking to you, they are spirit and they are life. So a brother that's spiritual will understand that if a brother goes off, the goal is not to destroy him and let his sin weigh him down by, just beating on him, telling him how off he is and so on and so forth. Now don't get me wrong, sometimes brothers gonna be rebuked sharply. But you don't at the same time don't want to destroy that brother's spirit. Why? Because the scriptures say in what's that, Matthew 7:12, do unto others as you had him do unto you. See? So restore such an one into the spirit of meekness. So the goal is to restore that brother, heal him through the spirit, not necessarily to beat him down. Like I said before, that don't mean brothers never gonna get rebuked sharply. Let's not get that twisted, you know. But the scripture says, "Considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted." So even if you are correcting him, rebuking him sharply, right? However you may, but when you're restoring that brother in the spirit of meekness, let him know his faults, and that we're not perfect. You got to consider yourself, lest thou also be tempted. So you got to think about that. You don't want to curse somebody out for doing something and you in turn get tempted to do the same thing and you fall into that temptation. You don't want that to happen. So you got to take that into account. Verse 2, bear ye one another's burdens, so fulfill the law of Yahushua. That's what we got to do. Bear one another's burdens. So if a brother's going to something, you got to be there to support him. And so fulfill the law of Yahushua. Love your brother as yourself. That's one example. Loving your brother as yourself. What's that? I think that's St. John 13 and 13 or 13 and 12, 13 and 14, somewhere around there. And there's other scriptures that relates to as well. That's just one I thought of off the top of my head. For if a man think himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceives himself, right? So if you think you're something when you're nothing, you're deceiving your own self. And you got people out there that think that way, that think that they're something when they're really nothing. You ain't nothing. You ain't nobody. And thinking like that, the Most High will allow Satan to tempt you. It will cause you to follow the truth. You know what I'm saying? You're getting played with these demons in your mind, thinking you wiser than what you really are. You might think because your page got a lot of subscribers, you get a lot of views, that means something. That don't mean a damn thing, man. You got guys that been in this thing 10, 15, 20 plus years that done fell off. That knew more than you. So that don't mean nothing. You know what I'm saying? And if you think you're something, you're deceiving when you're nothing, you're deceiving yourself. Why? It's the scripture. I want to go here. 1 Corinthians 4 and 7. For whoso maketh thee to differ from another? 1 Corinthians 4:7. For who maketh thee to differ from another? What makes you different from anybody else? And what is that thou didst not receive? What do you got that wasn't given unto you? Everything you got was given unto you. So what makes you different from anybody else? You didn't get it on your own. That's what he's saying. Now if thou didst receive it, why doest thou glory as if thou hast not received it? In other words, if what you got was given unto you, why are you boasting? Why are you glorying in it? Why are you being so prideful when everything that you got was something that was given unto you? So you acting like it was not something that was given unto you, because you glorying as if it wasn't. I mean, in other words, you acting like you got it on your own. It's like you teaching somebody something, whatever it may be, or you help somebody get somewhere in life, and then they go around, yeah, I got this, I know this, I know that, but they don't take into account the person that taught them, the person who where they got it from. They talking that they got it on their own, so you got to humble yourself. Don't get me wrong, we are all aware of our own capabilities, but thinking you greater than what you really are, that could really plague your mind. Thinking you're greater than what you really are, and that could put you in situations that's detrimental to you, because you won't take into account certain consequences of your actions. You're thinking too highly of yourself. You're thinking so highly of yourself, you don't think that you could ever fall. And then when that fall happens, it's great. Scripture tells us that Proverbs 16:8, pride go before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. The greater you lift yourself up in pride, the greater you lift yourself up in haughtiness, the greater your fall becomes. So pride comes before the destruction. So you got to check yourself, man. So scripture says, examine yourself. Is thou in the faith? Go back. Romans 12:3. For I say through the grace given unto me, that every man that is among you not to think of himself more highly than you ought to think. Don't think yourself higher than you ought to think, man. Don't do it. But to think soberly. Good word, soberly. Let's see.
Strong's G 4993. Sophrane.
Oh.
Strong's G 4993. Sophroneo.
Sophroneo. To be of sound mind, to be in one's right mind. There you go. To just exercise self-control right here. To put a moderate estimate upon oneself. Think of oneself soberly. So that's think yourself be a moderate. So in other words, the word moderate real fast. Moderate. To give you the best moderate. See, Merriam-Webster definition here, moderate. Moderate is avoiding extremes of behavior or expression. Observing reasonable limits. Here's from Cambridge. Moderate adjective. Some but not as much as or great as desired. So being moderate, like a person that's give you an example, a person has a moderate improvement in health. It wasn't great, but it was moderate. It wasn't extreme. So we are aware of our capabilities, things we can and can't do. You know how good we are at certain things. But you want to be moderate, think of yourself moderate. Because you start thinking you're greater than what you really are. It's like the dude on the basketball team that think he the best. So he goes and he tells the best player, get out the way. It's like a dude waving off, Michael Jordan and take the last shot. You know what I mean? That don't mean the person can't make the shot. But you gotta understand your own capabilities, man. You know what I'm saying? You don't want the guy touching the ball at the end of the game who can't make a free throw. But at the last second of the game, he wanna go and try to take a shot. I mean, you ever watch the basketball game? You're like, yo, man, why are you taking that shot? You know you can't hit those. They're not thinking themselves moderate. They think themselves greater than what they ought to think. So it says, for I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as the Most High hath dealt to every man the measure of faith. So we got to think according to the Most High has granted us a measure of faith. And the scriptures tell you that the secret things belong to the Most High. So there's something that the Most High has kept secret that we don't know, which shows you that the things that we know was given to us by the Most High. So all the things that we got from the Most High, we got to just take that into account, that that's something that was given to us. And we can only think ourselves in accordance to that, to what it was that we were given. I'm saying it's not of our own selves. You know? First Corinthians 8:2. And if any man, right to the point, and if any man that think that he knoweth anything, see right there it says knowledge puffeth up, but I'm not gonna get to that right now. I'm gonna get that another time. And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing as he ought to know. So you think you know something, but you don't really know what you ought to know. You know this, you know that, but there's other things greater than that you should know. You know all these deep breakdowns, but then somebody say, yeah, break down Romans 4th chapter. You can go into the Greek and the Hebrew and go into all of this history, but when it comes to certain things, the conduct, just certain things just in the scriptures, you can't really explain it because you never really read it. You never really understood it. So if you think you know anything, you don't know what you ought to know, man. You know why? Because if you knew what you ought to know, you will humble yourself. See? Think yourself moderately. Philippians 2 and 12. Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed. No, 2 and 13. For it is the Most High that which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. See? It's of the Most High, not us. That's self-explanatory. I don't got to break that down. Last scripture, Proverbs 26 and 12. Seest thou a wise man in his own conceit? Seest thou a man wise in his own conceit? There's more hope of a fool than him. Look at the word conceit. In literature, conceit is an elaborate, fanciful, or highly ingenuous metaphor. See if we get a bad definition. Okay, what's the Bible mean of conceit? In the Bible, conceit, which we already know what this means, right here. In the Bible, conceit refers to an exaggerated, self-inflated sense of one's own wisdom, importance, or righteousness. It is closely tied to a pride and arrogance, warning against the illusion of self-sufficiency and acting as a barrier to experiencing the Most High's grace, right? Because if you're wise in your own conceits, you believe you're self-sufficient, like you're getting it on your own, which separates you from the grace of the Most High, because you want to take into account that what you have was given unto you by Him, was given to you by Yahweh Bashim Al-Shah. So conceit is an exaggerated, self-inflated sense of one's own wisdom, importance, and righteousness. I remember years ago, a guy came on 34th Street, said, God knows I'm the most righteous man in the world. And he had a shaved face, man. Proverbs 26 and 12, we'll go back to that. Seest thou man wise in his own conceit? So a person wise in his own conceit has a believe that they're self-sufficient. They have exaggerated wisdom and righteousness, and just basically, think that they're great. Go back to that real fast. Exaggerated, self-inflated sense of one's own wisdom. So a person that has wise in their own conceit, they have exaggerated, self-inflated sense of their own wisdom and righteousness and importance. There's more hope of a fool than him. Why? Because a fool can be made wise. A person that feels like they're wise is not willing to become a fool so that they may be wise. In other words, they think they know everything, and that boosts them up with pride. So they're not willing to become a fool, meaning to acknowledge that they don't know everything, so that they may become wise. You know what I'm saying? It's like a person going to the class thinking they know everything. Listen, man, you gotta relax. You gotta be like a fool, accept the fact that you don't know everything, and that way you're more receptive to the knowledge being given unto you. But a fool has more hope than a person like that. You know why? Because a fool already knows that they don't have knowledge. So a person that's a fool through the spirit of Habashim El Shah can be made wise. So with that, I'm going to close. I'm still praising Habashim El Shah, the Blind Apostle GMS. I hope brother learned something. Shalom.